today we're talking about the movies that define Generation X, our generation,
Our
right?
generation. We are Gen X, and we are picking those movies that define us. So we each went away and we came back with four choices. We often do four for these. And I gave this a lot of thought. I actually watched a couple movies over the past few days to decide if they still count as movies that define Gen X. As a Gen Xer, I also looked at it is what movies define me as a Gen Xer. So I
Mm.
mixed a little of that in there as well, in how they define me.
Yeah, I did the same actually, because now we're Gen Xers and we're older now. Like we're not young anymore, but we're kind of middle aged. But I think all of mine not only define Gen X, but they look. I think mine, the ones I picked, uh, define it from a male point of view, like a masculine point of view, because I identify as an orientation of man or whatever you have to say nowadays. But it's pretty masculine, like the ones that I picked, because like a lot of I think a lot of our generation was dealing with like defining masculinity and lack of male influence in your life, and then how that affected you as a man and all this kind of stuff. And I think there's a lot of great movies like that do that.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into it then. What's your first one?
So, so all of okay. So all of mine are from. Here's an interesting note. All of mine are from the '90s. You know, I'm a big '80s fan,
Ooh,
right?
that's unusual for you.
But
Yeah.
all I know because I'm a kind of an '80s file, right? But all of these are from the '90s, and not only that, three of them are from the same year in the '90s.
Uh-oh, I hope we didn't pick some of the same ones because two of mine are from the same year in the 90s.
Yeah, but that's
We have
okay
some
because
overlap.
I think it'll be cool because if we do pick the same one, then we can analyze it and talk about it together, okay?
Okay. All
And
right.
because then and then why did we pick it and why do we feel that way and we're pals and then we could like discover each other's like uh whatever. So you might have picked this one. Here's my first one. It's Fight Club. 1999 Fight Club. I think that's one that really kind of defines my generation. And this movie was a kind of a sleeper, and it really caused a lot of like mixed reactions in 1999, right? And I really kind of relate to it maybe even more now, especially with that narrator character where he's just like his soul is crushed. He works at the office insurance thing, and he's got he's in the bathroom reading his IKEA catalog, figuring out what kind of like coffee table defines him as a person, right? And I get that. That's kind of that post-consumer thing where we were kind of trained to be consumers, and even from the '80s, if you're an '80s kid, it's like, yeah, commercials and consumption and your cartoons and your toys are all tied up, and the only way you can be happy is if you consume stuff. And I did that, man. I got the starter house, the second house, the accent walls, the red leather Italian furniture, the minivan, the job at the nice corporation, and and I did what I was supposed to do, but I had never been so miserable, right? Um, and really, it kind of defines that. It's like, wow, now we're kind of this feminized kind of culture of males where um, we have wine collections and we're concerned about accent walls, um, and maybe you just kind of want to go out and get into a fight, and you can't really. It's hard to nowadays. And I know how that is. It's just that it's hard. You can't really. I mean, I've been in a few fights and stuff, because like people act tough out here, and then they figure out that I'm like, oh, this guy's kind of crazy and serious, right? But yeah, we can't just go out and start fights. So these guys actually start a fight club. They're like, we're so hungry for some kind of masculinity in our lives that we're gonna start this underground fight club in these gritty bars and actually beat each other up, because that's how desperate we are for something masculine. So I think that I just think it's a big defining kind of thing about the males of our generation and kind of our angst and how we feel
Yeah, it's a good
and how
choice.
the revelations that we come up to.
Yeah, it's definitely a good choice. Because you're right, there is this level of men are no longer allowed to be men or behave in manly ways. You're not allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to fight. You are to yeah, go out, make money, and buy shit with the money that you make. And this movie is the opposite of that. It's basically saying no, that's bullshit. Chuck Palahniuk, the writer who wrote the book, I'm a huge fan of his. I've read numerous books of his. He's fantastic. Helena Bonham Carter was gorgeous in this film. I still have such a crush on her. She's such a lovely person. And so yeah, it's excellent choice. Not on my list, but it is definitely an excellent choice. And could have been on my list if my list were longer, but I had to limit it to 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do a part 2 of this someday, man.
There you go. So my first choice did go 80s, and I went with The Breakfast Club.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Breakfast Club, I
Yeah.
mean, this movie, I think, totally defines a generation. A lot of people think of it like as, oh, it's these kids getting together that don't like, aren't normally hang together, but then they become friends at the end. Um, but the thing about it is it's a movie that I watched younger and older. I can watch this movie now and still appreciate everything there is about this movie. It's John Hughes at his peak, a bunch of future stars and stuff, and it's it's kind of that you know when you're younger, you're these people in a way. It is kind of how I would describe it. You're one of these characters. You're probably, I mean, in my case, I wasn't the jock. I wasn't really the nerd. I was kind of just kind of I was the theater nerd, I guess. But you just you're focused on what your life is, how your parents are basically telling you to live your life, and how you want to live your life. And so you're so conflicted at this age, and that film, I think, sums up that teens and even into early 20s conflict of like, who do I want to be in my life? What do I want to be in my life? And how do I stand out and become something? Because at the end of the day, they all go back to their normal days. A week later, they're not talking to each other in the hallway. They're not acknowledging each other. They're going to go back to their lives. And it's just it is a movie to me that I think defines me in a certain way, but it defines a generation. I think it defines Gen Xers in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's interesting how they're put into these like you're a jock, and it's not even that, or you're the bad guy or bad boy, or you're the teen princess, or you're the geek. And these kids didn't even necessarily put themselves into that position. They were put into those positions, right? So like the jock, his dad's like, yeah, jock, you're a jock, yeah, sports, and then the geeks like, yeah, you're gonna get an MIT scholarship, that's your thing, right? And it's almost like they were just put into these positions,
And I
and then
think
they
that's the
get
thing of
together and they realize, yeah, we were all put into this position.
and that's the thing, we were put into it's, I don't know about you in school, but I felt that way too. Like you kind of hang around in the appropriate social group that you spent time with. And I don't go to high school now, obviously, but I don't get the impression that students are as much that way now. Like you can be a nerd and be popular. Like, the
Yeah,
popular,
yeah.
they're like, oh, look at this smart kid, and they'll support it. That kind of stuff. I don't think you're so siloed as we were, and even
Yeah,
generations
and I
before us
think
were.
that's, yeah, one good thing about like my son's generation is that I think, it comes with its pros and cons for sure, the way they kind of are doing their thing. But one thing is it's a very accepting kind of culture where you accept people for who they are and how they roll. So that's one good thing about like this new generation that I like. I think they're superior in that way to ours, is they kind of don't have those cliques and stuff as much. At least I don't see it as much.
Yeah,
So that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good choice. That was on my possibilities list.
Hmm.
Yep.
All right. What do you got next?
All right. So my next one was made in the same year as Fight Club, and it's called Office Space.
Oh God, I love Office
You know what
Space.
I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one, I this was another sleeper hit of 1999, right? People didn't
Yeah.
really know about it until later when it became kind of a slow burning cult favorite. And again, I just feel it like, and I the Peter guy, and he's in his cubicle, and it's just this. He did everything he's supposed to do, right? He's got his job, and then he's got his 8 bosses and his TPS reports, and it's miserable. Um, but he does it every day. He gets up and he just almost, wants to kill himself, and he's got, it's horrible. Peter's life is horrible, and I totally I mean, we work together. It's horrible, dude. The whole office thing, and you think, well, I did it. I did what I'm supposed to do. But this is horrible. This is miserable. You got these megalomaniacal narcissists above you who think nothing but themselves, and these big corporations, and you're working there, schlubbing around. It's awful. And so finally, he gets hypnotized. He's just like, you know what? Screw this. I'm just gonna do what I want to. I'm gonna go ask the girl out at the restaurant, and I'm gonna show up to work when I feel like it, and that kind of thing. And I don't know if that movie influenced me, but that's kind of how I am now. Like I freelanced for a while, and now I'm working again, but I'm working from home, and I think I'm just gonna keep doing that because I don't want to go to your office. Um, and so I think that really defines our generation, where we worked our way into the office thing, like good little Gen Xers, like just like we were supposed to do, and then we figured out that it's so funny that you can make a whole movie about how horrible it is, and they did that here. So I think that's one another movie, something a little more comedic and lighthearted than Fight Club, but maybe
Yeah.
a similar kind of thing, you know?
Movies that define me, Office Space is on that list. Yeah, I can relate to everything about that movie. Dreading going into work in the morning, the driving, changing lanes, and being stuck there. The boss that you're just like, my God, how is it that you're in charge of me?
Oh
Uh,
man.
it's so relatable. It is, yeah, our generation. Yeah, absolutely. Which is also why it was on my list.
Yeah. Is it on your list?
Yeah, it is on my list.
It is
19,
on your list?
yeah.
Yeah, I
1999.
did. Yeah, I got one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I could see why it would be on your list. We worked together, man. Remember back in the day, we were doing our office grind,
Oh man, we
and we
did it.
had
Yeah.
and I had a boss like that guy Rich, the guy who wore the
Should we
God
bleep
the
out his name there in case he
well,
hears this
I almost
podcast?
used his whole name. He can hear it. I don't care. He knows how I feel about him, but he's the one who wore those like really bright silk shirts, um, and had wine collection, and just talked about his wine collection all the time. Narcissistic, horrible manager. Oh, and that's he's like Office Space and the guy you want to fight in Fight
All in
Club at the
one.
same time, all in
Yeah.
one. Just awful. And I think that's why you and I don't really work at the place we worked at together anymore. And we're not really into the whole office thingy, because I think we're a couple Peter Gibbonses
Yeah.
who just were miserable. And I think there's a lot of Peter Gibbonses who are miserable, and they just kind of do it. I mean, you and I are just kind of either brave or dumb enough to get out of it, and we're probably broke, but
Well,
I'd
that's
rather be
him.
broke and not wanting to hang myself, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he ended the movie taking a lesser, probably prestigious job, less paying job, but he enjoyed it more.
Yeah,
You know? So
yeah.
absolutely.
And he doesn't go home every day wanting to like put a bullet in his head.
Well, I mean, he
So
goes
yeah,
home to Jennifer Aniston each day. So there you go.
Yeah, and he's probably buff because he's a construction guy
That's right.
now.
He's ripped.
And he
He's in
gets to
good
work with
shape.
his buddy. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
ripped. He's in good shape. He gets to go home to Jennifer Aniston. You
Yeah.
don't need a lot of dough,
No, not a bad
you
life.
know? You make a lot of dough, you're just fat and miserable and you're divorced.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? I
Yep.
know, because I was that guy.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Peter Gibbons got out in time, man.
As did we. As did we.
Yeah. All right,
Um,
bro. What's up?
okay. What's funny? Even the stapler guy getting moved to the office. I mean, how many times have you had your office moved and you're like, I had a good
Yeah,
desk,
yeah.
and now I get this
Do
shitty
you
desk.
remember? Yeah, do you remember back in the day where we were moving all the time, and then
Oh
we got
man.
some new, like our eighth new manager, and he's like, "Oh no, things are stable now. In fact, we're gonna have an office decorating contest." And then everybody's decorating their office, and then I was like, "I'm not decorating anything. My stuff's like in a box. Like I don't. I have my computer in a box of things that I can move like CIA style." And
Yeah.
we did, dude. Everybody had
Yeah.
to take all their decorations down and move again. They were all like, "Ah," I'm like, "You jackasses! You totally
Yeah.
fell for the eighth manager's bullshit."
Oh, totally, dude. Absolutely. That was me. I had my coffee cup, and that was pretty much, I didn't
Yeah.
have any pictures up or anything like, or when we were contractors. So people listening, so I don't know if Microsoft still does
Mm-hmm.
it this way, but when we worked for Microsoft as contractors, they don't give you a desk, or was it as vendors?
No.
Or well, either way. So the
Well,
team we were
either
on,
way.
yeah. So sometimes you get a desk, sometimes you don't. But anyway, so at the time that we were there on the team we were on, they didn't give us a desk. So we had to come in every day and find a new place to sit. Like literally,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
would
It's called
scope out the
squatting.
building and look for offices that didn't have an occupant and crash in that
Yeah.
office, like so that we could actually
But
just
we
have
had
a place
some
to
good
sit for the
ones,
day.
dude. Remember, we had some good ones with like windows and views, and
Yeah,
people thought
sometimes
we
you
were
get a nice
important.
one. And then you get some
And then,
admin that
yeah.
comes in, and the admin comes in and is like, "What are you doing in here?" And you're like,
What are
"I'm
you
just
doing in
crashing
here?
for the day." And they're like, "Yeah, you can't be in here. You got to get out." And you're like, "Fuck off." Yeah.
Yeah, the admins. Yeah, their little power.
Yeah.
Oh, corporate man.
Oh, good times.
Oh,
Okay, so my next one. So this one popped to my head pretty much right away when we discussed this, because I don't know if this is generation defining, but Clerks, the film, Kevin Smith, black and white, and I think it does in a lot of ways, because I've had these days where you just sit around and you have the stupidest conversations about, you and I've had the stupidest conversations about fucking Star Wars or whatever, Star Trek.
we have stupid conversations every week, and we put it out on
Totally,
the
and
internet.
we record it. um, but it's just like there's just so much, and there's so much about this movie that's been repeated ever since, like jokes from this film. But like as an actor, filmmaker-ish type person, watching this film made me think to myself, you know what, I can do this. Because prior to seeing this film, making movies was out of reach. That was Hollywood, big budget. You had to, know the right people to be the right in and be super fucking lucky, right? And then Kevin Smith came out and said, max out your credit card, make a film, send it, off, and that gets your career started. And so for me, not only was this film so relatable in a lot of ways, of just sometimes having that shitty dead end job, which I've also had. I mean, we make fun of our nice corporate Microsoft job that paid us really well and treated us well and gave us nice benefits. But I've also had the job where I worked at, a restaurant or any number of other, shitty jobs that paid minimum wage, that you're just kissing the ass of the next customer that comes through the door because they think they're more important than you, and they're like, you have to treat me nicely. And it's like, go fuck yourself. I worked at a coffee shop, that was the coffee shop was. So
Yeah.
this movie, out of everything on my list, I would say defines me more so than a generation. But I think this also defines a generation.
No, I agree. I think it's a very Gen X movie. It's a very Gen X movie because it's very indie, which is a kind of a Gen X thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's indie, and it's kind of got that Gen X slacker, witty slacker. Like these people are like they're in kind of the dead end jobs, but they're actually far smarter than you'd think they are being in their position. Um, yeah, and the movie itself and how it was made is, I think, very Gen X. Like I don't know. We grew up with Reaganomics and corporates shoving it, and then I think later we rejected it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is kind of proof that we rejected it. Is like, hey, we're gonna make black and white movies on a shoestring budget on our own, and it's gonna be a total hit. So
Yeah.
kiss our ass, Hollywood. That's how we're rolling because we're going all like grunge, and we're done with the whole consumeristic thing that you guys shoved down our throats our whole childhood. So I think
Yeah.
it's a very Gen X movie.
All right.
Totally. Yeah, good choice.
Thank you.
My next one is called again 1999 calls once it's Gen X movies back. American Beauty.
Good choice.
And I don't know at the time how but later now I see this movie and I'm like that I know what's up with this, right? So again, I think my whole theme is the guy in the miserable going through the whole rounds like he should be, and he's completely miserable. He's like, what's going on? So it's a guy, he's got this high stress, executive kind of job, and he's got the you know the the Karen wife who's probably from Issaquah, uh, and she's just going around cheating, and the self-absorbed daughter, and he's got the car and the house and all of this, and he's just like, this is miserable. And so again, it's like one of those things where he's just like, I think I'm done with this. And he gets a job at like the burger place, and he's like working out again and smoking weed with the neighbor kid, and he's like, yeah, I'm kind of going, I'm gonna pull the whole midlife crisis thing like proper, like, uh and his wife's like this and that. He's like, I don't care what you think. He's just donezo. Um, and it really shows like on the out. I like how it shows like how on the outside with the nice house and car, white picket fence, how things can look. But you peel back the onion a little bit on some of the families and who look like that, and even society, and it's bad shit, right? You just don't know because they put on a good show, and that's what this whole movie's about. The fact how inauthentic society really is, and how much of a show people put on for each other. And I think Gen Xers are probably more in tune to that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of those films that at the time I wouldn't have considered it generational defining because, of course, when I watched it,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't the appropriate age. But now that I am an
Yeah.
appropriate age, I could see having ended up in this position. I could think of a relationship that I was in that I might have, that I almost married that person and could have potentially had kids with that person and be this guy. Like there was no
Yeah.
doubt if I had stayed in that relationship, I would be this guy. I would be miserable.
Yeah.
I would be, like any of it.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
that guy. And I did that stuff, man. I'm serious. I went to work at a pizza joint. Uh, I went to work at a Value Village for a while where I was like lifting furniture so I could get in like better shape. I went and work at the sandwich shop. Yeah, I totally did that stuff. That's why it's weird that I did that, but I don't think that it is actually. And now I'm kind of in a job where it's not corporate, it's small company, but it's also not like service industry. So it's a good balance now. But it took me a little while of like middle age crisis and post divorce, like wandering, finding myself kind of crap just to get to where I'm at today. And it sucks that I have to go through all that. And it sucks that our generation has to go through all that kind of expectations and disingenuous bullshit to finally find yourself.
Yeah. I
uh
think I think one thing too, and then we talk about, millennials and Gen Z and Gen Y and Gen whatever. I think one thing that our generation is doing that is helping that one is basically saying do what you want to do, not what's expected of you. And so you see
mm-hmm.
people coming out of, school and going straight in, I think more so of being who they want to be and doing what they want to do
Mm-hmm.
versus to where we were like, okay, this is what we're supposed to do or what we have to do, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like with my son, I expect that he's well educated, does his good homework and all that. But that's only so you have the tools to go out and like do something that you're supposed to do, not something that society tells you you have to do,
Yeah, it gives
which
him
is
the
what we had.
options so that he doesn't have to
Totally.
worry. Yeah, that's great.
That's why we're better parents, man.
Word.
We're just better parents.
My next choice is going to be seem like a cliche option because if you say name a movie that defines Generation X, this movie's always on the list. It's Reality Bites.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
so I rewatched this movie this week to double check and make sure is it still generation defining? And I think it is. I think what Ben Stiller here did with the movie, it has, of course, Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke, Janine Garofalo. It has our generation is acting and performing in this
Yeah.
film. And when it came out, I was the same age, roughly the same age. They were older than me, but in the film because they were post college where I was just going into college, right? But so I hadn't started. I still could relate to a lot of that angst. And then I actually didn't see this movie when it came out. I saw it a few years later when I was in college, rented it on VHS and could totally relate. Like you're at that age, you're like, oh, you're so emotional, so you're searching for love because you think you need that to be happy, because you don't realize you don't really need that to be
Yeah,
happy.
totally.
There's so much more. You're
Yeah,
so
dude.
the parents, they all talk about how shitty their parents were, and I'm like, yeah, I can relate to that. The
Yeah.
just working at these sometimes dead end jobs or working for people that you don't care about. Janine Garofalo, she works for a Gap. I mean, Gap was huge like
Gap.
everybody went to Gap, so you can totally kind of relate. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that a different movie I'm thinking of? No, she worked at the Gap, right? I hope I'm not mixing my movies up because I also watched
I don't
Singles this
know, man.
week.
We'll just say she did.
Okay, because I also watched
Oh,
Singles this
singles,
week
yeah.
because I was trying to decide. Singles is not on my list, but it's definitely a Gen X defining film. And so one of them
Yeah.
worked at the Gap, and I actually might be the other one. So I might be mixing my movies up because I watched them both at the same time. But anyway, I'm sticking with it. It is still Gen X defining about like, you're at that age and you're like, what am I going to do with my life? Do I want to be an artist? Do I want to sit out here and you play guitar and try to make a living off that being a total loser? Do I want to work at retail at the Gap, which I hope I'm repeating this correctly? It had a great soundtrack it was just a perfect film.
Yeah. No, I think it might be cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a quintessential Gen X movie. And reality does bite. It totally bites, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's got the perfect name for what it is. It's like we're done with college and we're now out here in the real world and we're like, holy shit, the real world sucks. So could we go back to college? Because that was actually kind of fun.
Yeah. 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 And that's why I like the 80s because I was a kid, right? Um, the 90s, I was like growing up and realizing that reality bites. But yeah, yeah, totally. That's a good one. And the actors and stuff are like our people, man. They're
Yeah.
just totally our people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good choice. My last one is I had a hard time because there were so many that I wanted to pick, but I had a theme about kind of the guy who's done with society, which just kind of defines me, and I think it defines a lot of men my generation. So I went with a movie called Falling Down, starring Michael Douglas.
Dude,
Have you ever seen that movie?
I seen that movie and it was funny because I saw it and I'm like, because I was thinking about movie and I'm like, yeah, I could see this. I could absolutely see this being generation defining. So go, 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 go. Yep.
It kind of is. It's a Joel Schumacher movie, and this guy, he's in LA, and it just follows this guy who just flips, and he flips, and he's done. He's done with society. He's done with everything, and he does all the stuff that you kind of want to do, but it's totally not legal or probably moral. But like for instance, he's got his shotgun and they give him his crappy burger that looks nothing like the burger that looks like on the menu, and he takes out the gun. He's like, no, it looks nothing like that. He's just he goes around LA and he's tripping out on people, and he's just calling out every day-to-day injustice that people have to endure. But he's done with it. He's not going to endure it anymore. He flips out. He's got his gun. It turns out there's a reason for it, because he's like estranged from his family and all this stuff. But he totally flips. He abandoned his car. He beats up some like some gangbangers, and he the whole movie is just him going around flipping out. And I think it kind of defines our generation in a way, because I think that's what he's doing in a day, what I think everybody in our generation, and maybe multiple generations, but especially our generation, wants to do. We could see ourselves doing that. So as crazy as he is, and as illegal and probably immoral as he is, I completely relate to everything that he does. So I think that really kind of defines, if you want to get really deep down into the soul of the Gen X male, Kirk Douglas in Falling Down is a good example of how scary we can be.
Yeah.
If we flip out.
Because at some point, because I've certainly had the thought too. I'm sure you have, and numerous other people have, like, wanting to do this. Being stuck in traffic and just being like, "Fuck this! I've had it."
Yep.
Done. I'm gonna flip the fuck out. I'm gonna go batshit crazy, and let it end up where it ends up. Because absolutely had that thought, and it's true, because he does in this film so much of what we've thought about doing.
Yeah, and yeah, with the commutes and he's in his tie, he's going to the office, he's got a briefcase, whatever, and his family life went to shit and whatever, and he's just done. He flips. He's totally done. So I hope I never flip out that bad, but I can relate to that character in that movie. Like, if I ever do flip out like that, it'll probably be like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This was a hard task, because there were so many good movies to pick, but I think we picked pretty damn good films here. Every single one.
Yeah.
I'd support. Good choices.
Yeah, and I'd be anxious to see what our listeners think, if there's any Gen X defining movies that they say, oh, you got to put this on your list, or what. But yeah, I think we picked a pretty good list. I think people should, if they haven't watched the movies on our list, they should go watch it, the movies, and then they get a good feel for like the Gen X male
angst,
and how
regret,
we kind of what's in
anger.
angst. So what's in our soul? We want to do the right thing. Yeah. Yeah. It's not all happy roses and stuff, man. We picked some kind of like some, I don't know.
Yeah.
We had a rough time, but that's fine. Most of the great artists, were born of kind of rough times.
Yeah. I had a couple decent, good, upbeat ones on my short list, but just couldn't quite make it to the top 4. Okay.
Upbeat ones.
Yeah, maybe we should do that next. Should be our generation defining that aren't depressing or aren't angsty, written, angry.
Angsty, angry, like more upbeat. We'll do like Generation X defining movies part 2, and the rainbow version, like something a little. But I did have the Office. I had Office Space in there, which was pretty funny and kind of light.
It ends on a happy note. I mean, come on. Yeah, true indeed. Okay, well, in Reality Bites, I mean, Winona Ryder's character and Ethan Hawke's character end up together, and so although I picture them a few years later, if they did a sequel, they'd be divorced.
Yeah, they totally would. Just like half of us are anyway.
Yep. Okay, let's wrap it up here. So, as always, 80s and 90s Uncensored listeners, check out our website, 80s90s.com. And we are out of here like our generation as this one moves into the next. Millennials, Gen Z, whatever you want to call them, we leave this crazy, fucked up world to you. Goodbye.
Enjoy.